Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel. And in some breaking news, Judge Merchan is holding out. He is going to continue to play this carrot on the stick that Donald Trump is a one-dimensional villain, and it is absurd. After all that they put Donald Trump through, the lawfare, throughout the campaign, and then, of course, election time, the American people realized, understood exactly what was happening. Now, to start this off, I want to take a quote that I paraphrased from Tim Pool. The 34 charges were presented as felons. However, there was no underlying crime required by the statute, so they couldn't have brought any charges. It was originally 34 misdemeanor charges for falsifying business records, but they added in furtherance of a crime, which they never proved. So in other words, they had nothing to deal with, right? They had nothing to work with. So they had to raise the misdemeanor to a felony to be able to move forward with it. So they agreed that the 34 misdemeanors, which was only one check, and they turned it into 34 instances, which they turned into felonies. It was all done so the media could title articles and headlines with Donald Trump a convicted felon. And that was my last point that I wanted to make on there as well. So I wanted to add that in there, and we're going to go back and revisit what's called the jail man amnesia effect. And this is where you, an individual, are aware of a topic or a subject or your work. You know exactly how it works, but you read an article about it in the newspaper and you say to yourself, these people have no idea what they're talking about. And this is the jail man amnesia effect. Then you go on and read another article by the same agency, as it were, on another topic, and then you just presume, I'm not saying you particularly, people would presume that the rest of the articles are all correct. So this is what's happening here. And now, I am not, I was never an attorney, I was never a paralegal, but I did work in law as a legal assistant. And this year, I did have jury duty. And just from that little bit, I already know that what Judge Merchan is doing is novel. This is not typical of what typically happens. Because here we have from Nick, as we've posted here, talked about before, just in, Judge Merchan has told the jury they do not need unanimity to convict. In other words, they don't have to be unanimous, which is what a jury is supposed to do. This means 4 jurors could agree on the first crime, falsifying records, 4 on the second, tax violations, and 4 on the third, Fed election violations, which he's just allowing them to cherry pick this type of buffet-style law. This isn't how our law works. And we saw that happen very clearly, even in the situation with Daniel Penny, where they moved from one conviction to another conviction or a lesser charge just to try to find him guilty of something. What's happening in New York is absolutely despicable and reprehensible. And we saw that with Kathy Hochul, the governor. And she was saying here, the New York governor seeks to quell business owners' fears after Trump ruling. In simple terms, what she's saying is that, attention, business leaders in New York City, your governor admitted New York courts went after Trump for political purposes. There are even threats of confiscation of his property. Don't be fooled. So, in other words, she had to come out to try to quell the fears of all the businesses because they could be pursued just like Donald Trump was. Any of them could be. But this illustrates the specificity of what they were doing by targeting Donald Trump. And the thing here is, here's Michael Cohen's attorney, Robert Costello, talking about the exchange between him and Cohen. All right. You going to play?
He didn't believe the allegation of the Stormy Daniels story, that he thought the story would be embarrassing for Trump and especially for Melania, so he decided he would take care of it himself.
Absolutely, and that is contrary to what this guy testified to in court in New York yesterday.
Well, and what's not being talked about is your next paragraph, like the reason and his motivation for that. So if you could just kind of walk through that for the committee.
Yeah, obviously, when we started to talk about the NDAs, and this is the very first meeting at the Regency Hotel, when, by the way, Rudy Giuliani was not involved in representing Donald Trump at that time. Cohen testified that it was a conspiracy between Giuliani and Costello as of this date. Totally false. In any event, he also said that he didn't discuss the Stormy Daniels matter with us, and he certainly did. I specifically asked him because he kept on going back saying, I can't believe they're trying to put me in jail for these NDAs. So I said, Michael, tell me about the NDA. Tell me about Stormy Daniels. What did you do? He said, I got a call from a lawyer representing Stormy Daniels who represented that she was going to testify that Donald Trump had sex with Stormy Daniels. Michael Cohen said, I didn't believe the allegation, but I knew that such an allegation would be terribly embarrassing. He said it would be embarrassing. He focused on Melania Trump. He said, I didn't want to embarrass Melania Trump. He said, that's why I decided to take care of this on my own. Right. I went back to that several times. You did this on your own? On my own. Did Donald Trump have anything to do with it? No. Did you get the money from Donald Trump? No. From any of his organizations? No. From anybody connected to Donald Trump? No. Where did you get the money? I took out a HELOC loan against my property. I said, why would you do that? He said, I didn't want anybody to know where I got this money. I didn't want Melania to know. I didn't want my own wife to know because she's in charge, he said, of the Cohen family finances. He said, if she saw money coming out of my account, she'd ask me 100 questions, and I didn't.
And there you have it, right there. That's the entire trial right there. Donald Trump hired Michael Cohen, and the checks he wrote, the check they're talking about here was legal fees. The check was written as legal fees. Merchan would not let Trump's attorneys object to anything that was going on or being said for fear of obstruction, right, in court. And it was absolutely extraordinary how Merchan and both Engoron would do this, using summary-style judgment to keep evidence from being presented, from allowing witnesses to speak, from allowing Trump's attorneys to object. It's absolutely extraordinary what they're doing here. Now, I have a feeling that what's actually going on is that Merchan is just going to play the game. He's going to play this thing out. But listen to the snark in this New York article. A judge on Monday rejected Donald Trump's argument that a recent Supreme Court ruling had nullified his criminal case in New York, upholding the former and further president's felony conviction for falsifying records to cover up a sexual scandal. That's not what happened. We just heard from Costello outlined that it was Cohen that was involved in all the payments and that he took out a HELOC loan so that his wife wouldn't know that he was doing these payments and making these payments. And Donald Trump contended the entire time, the one check, that he wrote that for legal fees. The judge's ruling preserves, at least for now, the stain of Mr. Trump's criminal conviction. And if it withstands Mr. Trump's appeal, it will make him the first felon to serve as president. This is exactly what the media wanted. This is exactly what the establishment and the Democrats wanted. They wanted to be able to start articles. They wanted to be able to start posts. They wanted to be able to let everyone know that Donald Trump was a convicted felon in a sham, novel, orchestrated, coordinated case, which is absolutely ridiculous. And anybody who works in law is going to experience the jailman amnesia effect, realizing that Merchan was controlling everything that was going on with this and was not allowing Trump to enter evidence, was not allowing Trump's attorneys to speak. Trump was not allowed to call witnesses. It was a complete kangaroo court. A complete court, very similar to what you would find in Russia or China or North Korea or maybe even in parts of Europe. It's absolutely extraordinary. I can't emphasize enough. I cannot overstate enough how this was an intentional, coordinated effort by the establishment, by individuals who cannot stand Donald Trump. It's just that simple. And the idea that this is continuing, this is what I call carrot on the stick nonsense that they're continuing to do, that at any moment they can take down Donald Trump. Donald Trump is now going to be the president of the United States. But these people are so full of hate. They are so full of envy. They are so full of themselves when it comes to them maintaining their power, holding the narrative, controlling our culture, controlling our institutions, controlling our justice system, that Merchan is going to hold out. This is why I have no problem whatsoever with Amy Bondi or even Kash Patel looking into all of this, because to the American people that voted for Donald Trump, unanimously, as it was, we saw even the popular vote, this sort of nonsense cannot continue. It can't. And we saw, if you watch my video, go to my main channel there, you saw the video that I did on ABC News, paying Donald Trump $15 million. Now, it's going to his library, not to him in his pocket, but to his library, because they lied about the E. Jean Carroll case. They specifically and intentionally lied. And not only that, in the video, which I didn't play in that video, George Stephanopoulos repeated the word several times. And I think the total amount of times that it was said, not just necessarily in that video, but over the video and in articles, was 10 times. So they defamed Donald Trump because they were protected by the establishment. They were protected by the Democrats. And now all that's falling apart. Their power is falling apart. They're not going to have that anymore. But in this situation, I think with Judge Merchan, he is holding out to the last minute. He is going to play chicken until Donald Trump decides to make a move. So then they could say that Donald Trump tried to expunge all this himself through the power of the presidency, when in reality, again, we're back to the jailman amnesia effect, making everyone believe that what they say, what the Democrats say, what the establishment say, is actually the truth, when in reality, it's a bunch of nonsense. Came close to saying something else, but it's absolutely absurd. And this is what really is so irritating. When I continue to see, and it's interesting that The View has to continue to make these legal notes as they go about what they do, and I'm glad that we saw what happened with ABC News having to pay that fine or having to settle. And they settled quickly, didn't they? They settled very quickly because the FCC holds them to the public interest. That's the major networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, public service style networks, as it were, because they're beholden to the people. And if they lie or they manipulate or they falsify or they engage in disinformation and misinformation, the FCC can pull their license. Because there's a level of public trust when it comes to the media. Just like when it comes to ambulance, police or rescue or fire. There's a level of public trust there. And if that's violated, that's a huge problem, a gigantic problem. So here we have a judge in New York, Merchan and Engoron, that just went out on a limb at the instruction. There is no doubt that they were instructed by the establishment, by the Democrats, to pursue this. And it's absolutely despicable. It needs to be pointed out. It needs to be brought to light, at least in my opinion, because this absurdity is so irritating to see. The continual misinformation, disinformation, and antagonizing and criticizing of Donald Trump for something that he wasn't even involved in, other than the fact that it's him and he hired Cohen to take care of, a fixer, is basically what Cohen was. And Trump doesn't have the time to sit there and finagle over details and minutia about Stormy Daniels, right? That's what Cohen was supposed to do. And that's what Cohen was doing, as Costello was saying, that Cohen was trying to handle this all on his own. Donald Trump didn't have full knowledge of what all was going on. And so when he tried to explain all this in court, Merchan would shut down his attorneys and threaten them with contempt of court. It's absolutely extraordinary. But I'd like to get your guys' thoughts and opinions down below. How much of this absurdity, how have you as a person watching my videos or reading this on the news, how do you guys feel about this absurdity, this absolute facade, this charade, this nonsense that is continuing to go on? It's absolutely ridiculous. I want to thank all you guys across New Tech, that's BitChute, Rumble, and Odyssey, for your guys' continued support. What an amazing 2024, is it not? And for all you guys below this video, you can find the various social media links that I belong to, so I would encourage you guys to give me a follow there if you are active on social media, of course. And if you are an Amazon Prime member or order frequently from Amazon, my links are down below. You can use that landing page. It does help out the channel, but of course your likes, your shares, and your comments also help out the channel tremendously. And of course, if you're interested in a VPN, a virtual private network like I like, Trust Zone is my favorite. But thank you guys for your continued support here in 2024. Appearing there on the screen, that would be the channel icon. You guys can click on that if you're watching specifically on YouTube to subscribe to the channel and select notifications. That way you know when there's content here on the channel. And I'll see all you guys in the next video.